was the director of the teen center in Hyde Park that was in the focal point where it was music, live music, great live music. And that led to the Level of the Garage one way or the other. My first concert as a preview to the Garage was at the zoo. And that was for two reasons. One was I knew I had leased the Garage, and I knew I was going to have a club there, and so I wanted to kind of leak the word out. And then while I was thinking about doing that, Oh Happy Day came out with the Evan Hawkins Singers. I don't know how many of you remember that, but Oh Happy Day would be like, I don't know, it was a gospel tune. Right. It became a top 40 tune, and it was one of those things that just set you down and clap your hands, sit on hands to keep from waving. And I just had to do that concert. So I booked them for a concert at the zoo in June of '69, and Talk Sound Museum into opening for them. And that was a combination that just would not quit. They're totally different, but it was wonderful. Do you have anything to add to the Sound Museum?
Well, I'm just curious, not so much to add, but talk to me more about it.
Yeah, do you remember anything in terms of their performances at Ludlow Garage? Do you remember any? I mean, it's a million years ago, so you might not.
Well, no, I mean they were just an excellent band. They crossed over it, but I mean they were, because they were so good and so had such a wonderful repertoire. I mean they commanded a broader audience than a lot of bebop jazz bands did. I was just thinking for a minute that I'm not sure that Grover played with them. They played again for me. I'm glad you asked. Another one of the preemptory strikes for the Garage was the Midwest Mini Pop Festival. And this was in August of '69. And the festival thing was growing in its influence and importance. And I thought, well, let's do one. So I contracted with Vanilla Fudge, Lonnie Mack, we've talked about, the Paul Butterfield Blues Band with Elvin Bishop, co-lead at the time, Grand Funk Railroad, who had, I just played at the Eden Park, and they've been a big hit there. They were just getting started. Sound Museum, and Balderdash. And God, it was a great lineup. It was a great concert with rain, a huge downpour right in the middle. It was a daytime concert at the zoo. And the zoo had no idea what they were doing. And if any of them were here now, except for the director, they would admit it. They were looking for some extra money and make use of their facilities in some way. And I approached them this idea, and I had done that concert with the Evan Hawkins Singers, and that went very well. It was a church crowd, so it was very cool. Nobody jumping the fences back in those days. And whereas in this case, half of them were jumping the fence. And when the rain hit, I mean, we had people, almost jumping off the roof of the Ape House, and there was a slide, a mud slide at the end of the Bear Pits parking lot where the concert was, and which actually turned out to be a lot of fun to save the day, because doing this kind of a rambling narration like I'm doing now, and just any thought came in my head to keep people focused. We made it through, and it was actually a lot of fun, except for Lonnie Mack did not want to play because he's afraid to get electrocuted. And he's probably right, but I insisted, and we got through. The only other little tidbit I would add to that is that was a couple weeks after you know what. exactly. And the sound system at the garage, I mean at the concert at the zoo, was essentially, it was just a small portion of the Woodstock sound. So I had contracted with Bill Hanley, who was Bill Graham's sound man, to do the garage. And I figured it was good enough for Bill Graham, it was good enough for me, so I contracted with Hanley to do a sound system for the garage. And coincidentally, he said, well, you're not going to be doing this concert, this thing called Woodstock, a short time before that. Why don't we just, when we're finished there, we'll break down, we'll bring part of it to the garage, and that'll be the system for the garage. So it was. And it was about this thick, encased in mud. When they arrived, all that mud was still on those speakers. The sound men could barely walk. It just made it a little more interesting.
We have another question back here.
I apologize in advance. I have a couple questions, so they're going to be a little bit long in the tooth. But to touch back to the quote-unquote fun that you used to have, I always wondered how you came to know Tom Sheehy, owner of Uptown Tattoo, rest his soul, and what the two of you were up to back in the glory days, because he had mentioned being good friends with you, but would never really elaborate on your goings-ons. And my other question is, not for nothing, Jim, you're kind of a mascot or ambassador to Cincinnati, so I was wondering if you knew of any efforts to get the Emery restored, or suggestions, and you have a little bit of experience of putting together musical venues.
Well, I'll work on that last one real quickly. On the first one, that's real personal that I don't think folks here would appreciate, so that's probably some conversation you and I should have afterwards. But just real quickly, Tom Sheehy was just this just lovely, sweet man who was a tattoo artist uptown in Corryville and Short Line. And the only reason I bring it up here is because he was part of a group called the Cano Farm, which was down in Burlington, Ohio, which is a group of crazy hipsters that started this commune farm called the Cano Farm. And they did a lot of neat stuff. Some of the people from what's the band? Mark, Rasmussen, Mike Barrett, modulators. Some of the guys were instrumental in getting that started, and they were doing some things that were kind of unique at the time, so kind of back to earth sorts of things. They kind of broke some new ground for some of us. Anyway, the Emery. Well, you know what? Glad you asked that, because I said my first concert was with Evan Hawkins, as it was, but my first concert at the garage itself was scheduled for whatever the date was, September of '69, with Jesse Colin Young and the Youngbloods. Lonnie Mack, and couldn't get enough of Lonnie Mack, and Balderdash. And the format of the garage, as I saw it, and I have to give Graham credit again, I was kind of persuaded by his programming inclinations, and so I wanted to have a national act to make for the garage to be important. I wanted to have a regional act, so we had some idea of what was going on in our region. I wanted to have a local act. So that was the format. Where is it? So you might take notice of this flyer that's left over from the garage days on the 27th and 29th. Don't ask me what happened to the 28th. Oh, I see. I don't know why I did that either. It's probably why the garage isn't open now. Ridiculous things like that. But New York Rock and Roll Ensemble was the headliner. Alice Cooper, who were a relative unknown. I thought they were kind of cool, and then Mad Lydia was a local act, so that was the lineup for that night.
Yep.
That 28th was 10 years after, it was the national act, and Alice Cooper and no local act, probably because 10 years after it cost too much. And then the next week was Allman Brothers, American Dream, and Zephyr. None of whom were local, but it was kind of one national and two regional acts. But anyway, that first night was Jesse Colin Young and Youngbloods and Lonnie Mack and Balderdash, and that was to be at the garage. That was the opening night, and I came to work one day, and there was a big red sticker on my door. It said, "Stop, work, do not do any more." Signed the Cincinnati Building Department. And it was one of the reasons why I say, just keep your nose down and keep plugging. Because whatever artificial undue influence comes along, those things will go away eventually. You just stay focused. And that was a purely political thing, because the people, some of the folks in Clifton didn't want hair and beards in their on their street. And it was pretty much as simple as that. I had visits from every single department head known to man, and some they didn't even know existed, come and visit me and tell me how terrible everything I was doing was. And and so that was just, but that was all about politics. But nevertheless, I had to do something else, and I had to find a place to do that concert in a hurry. And I knew something about the Emory, and I thought, well, try it out. And UC was in charge of it at the time, and the woman who was in charge of the facility said, that's fine. So I did my concert there, and I swear to God, I can taste it as we speak. People were on their feet on that second note, and they stayed on their feet all night. It was so having had that experience, and then a few others afterwards there, I can tell you firsthand that it is as good a facility as we've ever had in my lifetime, and probably as we'll ever get. It's big enough to do some really, really major concerts. It's small enough that you can do a lot of minor ones and still feel like you're in a very intimate atmosphere. You can do a concert for 300 or 400 there and feel pretty intimate. You could also do a concert for 1,500 there. So that's the range that we're missing. You know, even with Southgate up and operating, we didn't have that middle range of a venue. That's and there's some places I won't mention by name that I just don't think are. They might be in that size category, but I don't consider them a really first class performing space. And the Emory is second to none. It was built after the program of design that the Carnegie Hall was built, designed for, and Symphony Hall in Boston, two of the finest acoustical environments, aesthetic environments in the country. And the Emory is very similar, and it'll take $5 million, and that's a lot of money, but well, for what you would get. As to what's going on there now, there are two women that came here from New York. One's from Cincinnati originally. They came back here to visit, found out about the Emory. They were all looking for something to do and decided to embrace the Emory as a project. And I know they're working their fannies off over there trying to figure out how to make it work. It's been a couple of years now. I don't think they've raised any real serious money, but I don't really know. I hope they have, and I hope we hear something encouraging soon, but I'm not aware of anything particularly encouraging right now. But I think it could be cart before the horse. I would argue that the Emory was valid you know, a couple decades ago in terms of fixing it up and making it work on a regular basis.